Hi, I'm Kyle Bleeker, the pastor of Friends Church in Tustin, and I'm glad you're checking out some of our online content today. Along with our in person gatherings, which are every Sunday at 10 a.m., we have a number of different ways to help people get connected to our community and discover what God, the Bible, and Jesus have to do with your life. So check out our website to learn more or send our team a message directly using one of the links so we can help you find your way. Thanks again for taking the time. Now, on to this week's message. So glad to be able to be here with you this morning. Obviously, I think we are 11 days out from Christmas. Is that right? Yeah? You're not all counting? We have a house in our neighborhood that they changed the little number in front of their house, but they haven't changed it for like 3 days. So the boys are driving by and they're like, "No, that's not right. No, it's 11 days. It's gonna be soon." But we get the chance to be able to talk a little bit about this theme that we've been going through, which is the theme of promise. We've talked so far in the last number of weeks about the fact that our God is first and foremost a promise maker. Our God actually is willing to put himself out there and to make a promise to his people. And that's what we see within the Bible. But on top of that, God is also a promise keeper. That's what we talked about last week, that not only does he state something, but he holds it. And one of the main ways that he actually sees those promises lived out is through his people. Today we're talking about a little bit of a different idea, and that is that the promise has actually been delivered. So not only is a promise made, but a promise is kept, and then a promise is delivered. It actually arrives to you. An interesting thing about gift cards, which we were talking about just a minute ago, is that gift cards in the United States come in all kinds of variety, okay? I'm hopeful for you that what you just shared with somebody, that you will get that gift card, right? So, Stacy, I hope, Ben can really come through for you, with Target, right? But there's so many different kind of gift cards that exist, and people give people all kinds of different ways to maybe spend their money down the road, right? But here's an interesting couple of facts that you might not know about gift cards. Unused gift cards in the United States alone are estimated to total between 23 and 27 billion dollars. Okay? There are 43% of Americans that have some type of gift card that is currently unused. There's a lot of reasons for this. We'll talk about that in a second. Real quick show of hands. How many of you have a gift card right now that is unused? Okay, all right. That was more than 43%, okay? Now, here's the fun part, and this is what I want you to do is just state to your neighbor, what do you think the average amount is that an American has of unused gift cards? Real quick, just state to somebody right next to you. What do you think it is? 70 cents? Not even close. What do we got? 200. $244 is the average. All of you are like, what? I want to be in on that, right? But here's the big question is why? Why in the world is there that much money that has been spent that businesses at this point in time don't have to make good on? They've made a promise through that gift card that they would actually allow you to purchase goods and services through those gift cards. So it's a promise that's out there, but the promise isn't being used. Why is that? Well, they talk about the fact that these promises are often, or gift cards specifically, are not used because they're lost. So you had it, and then shucks, it just slipped into that deep crevice right beside your seat in your car, which nothing ever comes back from, right? So it's down in there, or it was given to you for a place that maybe you don't really like. So you're sitting back and you're like, oh, I don't really want to go to that store. Nothing fits, or, ooh, that food made me sick last time, right? But then there's also this idea of a gift card that might get stolen, might get pulled away. And then there's just the sense of wait, I don't know what to do with it. Strange, but that's 23, 24, 26, $27 billion worth of that. Now, we're talking about promises. So what about unused promises? What's the total value for humanity in terms of promises that are made and that people actually want to give, but that people never draw upon? It's hard to quantify, right? What percentage of people have promises out there right now in their life that were given to them that they've never made good on? They've never actually said, oh, that person promised to go out for coffee with me. Or, oh, that person promised that they would come and help me move. But we just leave it on the table. We say, but I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to ask, right? What's the average amount of maybe time or dollars or value that we might have in our lives that people have promised that they're willing to give, but that we maybe haven't drawn into our life? Why does it go unused? That's the big question. Why does it go unused? We talked about gift cards, we're talking about promises, but here's one of the reasons why I'm driving us here, is because I truly believe that God has delivered on his promises in the person of Jesus Christ. I believe that it was a real birth. I believe that it happened within history. I believe that the world has seen great, profound change over the last 2,000 years. And yet, I believe that there are many who, though the promise is right on their doorstep, they've heard of it, they know about it. There's reasons why they have not chosen to actually accept it or to make good use of it. And that's what we're going to be exploring today a little bit. Specifically that question of why. Because not only do I believe that God has delivered this to humanity's doorstep, but I believe that every single one of us has the opportunity to make a decision about what we're going to do with that delivery. How are we going to respond? What are we going to do with this thing that's landed in front of us? Will it go unused? Will we accept it? This is what happens with some of the packages that come to our house. They land right out front of our door. Sometimes I can't even get in the door because Amazon loves our family so much, right? But sometimes they come in and they just sit there for a while. We've welcomed them into the warmth of our home, but they have not been opened, right? Then after a period of time, maybe we unpack them, we see what they are, but we can't actually assemble what it is, right? But there are those rare things that sometimes they come in and we're excited and we open them up, we take them out, we assemble them, and then we begin to use them in our lives. And the thing that was delivered becomes a part of our living, right? And sometimes some of those things that are delivered to our house, they end up helping us in such a way that we could even say that they delivered us from something that was bad or something that was challenging or something that was lost. Right? This is the concept that we're playing with today a little bit, is the concept of God, the promise maker and promise keeper, also the promise deliverer. And what do we as people do with that promise? And why might some of us, many of us maybe, leave those promises unused? The Bible has some good things to say about this. And so if you have a Bible with you or if you have a phone, I would invite you to actually look up a passage of Scripture which is referred to as John chapter 1. John chapter 1. If you look it up even in Google, you can just type it in. But if you have an app or a Bible, you can go to John chapter 1. Now I'm going to be reading from this passage the first 14 verses. John 1, verse 1 through 14. And this, as we read it, you're not going to hear it and think, oh, this is the classic Christmas story. This is not a picture of the nativity scene. This is not talking about shepherds and angels. This is a little bit more of a cosmic view of what was happening at the time of Christmas. It pulls back and gives you almost like a grand origin story of what was happening in the coming of Jesus. And it begins with some really profound words, which are in the beginning, which is kind of a callback to the book of Genesis. So we're going to look at this passage just for a little while, but as we do, there's one thing I have to kind of preload you with, because there's something that you're going to hear a couple of times, and it's important for me to help you understand why it is spoken about in the way that it is. And that is simply that you're going to hear, it says this, in the beginning, the Word. And it's going to say that a couple of different times. It's going to refer to this thing which is called the Word. And what I want you to know is that this text, when it was originally written, that word in Greek was the word logos. And logos is what we use when we talk about biology, right? Or theology. It just means a word spoken about about life, a word spoken about God. That's what all of our subjects are in college, right? They are theology, biology, psychology, okay? You're with me. But here's the thing about logos. At the time when this was being written, originally in the early first century, there were a number of different Greek philosophers who had spent a lot of time just pressing in and trying to figure out what is ultimate reality all about. There's a lot of things that we appreciate about the Greeks that they have given us, but philosophy is really one of the core things that people would sit back and say, yeah, the ancient Greeks, they really spent time trying to unpack what life is all about. And in their search for ultimate reality, the truths that they could really base life upon, and they eventually came up with the term for what they believed was kind of the origin of all life and the foundation through which life could be lived in its best way. That word was the word logos. And so not only was it a word about life, but these Greeks would walk around and they would constantly be exploring, well, what do you think the logos is? Or how do you think the logos is lived out within our lives? And so logos was a loaded concept for them. Along comes John, the writer of this tale about the life of Jesus. And what does he do? He does something that every Greek philosopher at that time would have been appalled at. He takes their title, this idea of an impersonal force that not only orders the universe, but also is the cause of the universe. And he says, oh, I know about your logos. In fact, I know it in a person. Not just a force out there like Star Wars, right? But rather an actual personal being that you can know, that you can walk with, who you can reject or you can accept. And a person who is actually delivered to the world at a time when it needed it most. That is the logos, that is the word. And in this passage, it is described as the person of Jesus. And so you're going to see a little change. I know that was a lot, right? Thank you for sticking with me. But the concept is simply the fact that you're going to hear him say at the beginning the word, and then all of a sudden they're going to say he. And they're going to move back and forth between the word and he. I want you to understand, a Greek philosopher reading that would have been so mad. I hope it doesn't make you mad this morning. I hope it makes you curious. So let's read together, starting at John chapter 1. God, as we read this, please shine your light in our hearts so that we can better understand who you are. John chapter 1, verse 1 says this, in the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light, so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world he created, but the world did not recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him. But to all who believed him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn, not with a physical birth resulting from human passion or a plan, but a birth that comes from God. So the Word became human. In a lot of other texts, it says the Word became flesh and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. We're going to unpack some different parts of that passage there, but verses 1 through 14 give you just a grand picture of a number of different things that are going on. And here's what I want to put in front of you. I believe that text. I've come to a place of, after exploring and trying to discover like who God is, that I actually believe that some of those grand claims, the idea that Jesus was pre-existent, that he actually existed before everything came into being, and that through Jesus, all things came to actually exist, and that he entered into this world as the life and light of all mankind. That's what I believe. That's why I celebrate Christmas. But what I want to be able to say to you is, I get the fact that that sounds crazy, okay? I understand that within our world, when we walk around and we wish someone a Merry Christmas, right? But if we start to talk about the pre-existent Jesus Christ, right? That some of that could be a little bit, wait, like what? So I just want to be able to say that one of the reasons I think why our world at times has a hard time accepting the delivery and actually wanting to unpack it is just like what it talks about in this text, that they did not recognize him. I think that there's many people out there, they're smart, they're intellectual people. They have built their life on reason and on the importance of science. I don't want to discount any of that whatsoever. We should not. But there are people who they come to a point where they say, I'm sorry, I just can't fully pull that into my worldview. I heard Jon Stewart, a comedian, talking at one point in time, and he said, you know what? I just can't get there. I just can't get to the point where I accept that God actually is real. And he said, and part of it is because religion has done so much good, but everything that religion has done is completely negated by how much bad I see that religion has done in the world. And so for him, he's got genuine questions, genuine problems. And some of it, I think, comes from an inability to recognize or even understand what in the world a passage like this is talking about. It's not easy. It's tough. And I think it was tough when it was first written. I think it was a little bit of a smack in the face to some of the philosophies of the world at that time. And I know that questions and logical understanding is part of the reason why people can't accept the delivery. They don't sign for it. I think some of it also comes from the fact that they think about this idea of a birth, and they think, well, why? They're like, this is outlandish, right? Like if I'm going to think about my God, an all-powerful being who created everything, and then you're going to talk to me about the fact that he pre-existed, but then he chose to enter into the world as a small child, and that was his plan for redemption. Like, I'm sorry, but that just seems kind of bonkers. It seems outlandish, and it doesn't seem very practical. Why would God do that? Like, just, I wouldn't bet on that practice, okay? And then I think there's one more reason, which I think is one of the biggest ones, which is just the reality of pain. I think the reality of the fact that the world is a very hard and cold and broken place. And that sometimes the idea of a package being delivered to your door that is supposed to fix everything and that can make life so much better. Oh, no, it's the promise of Jesus and it's here for you. And people look at it and they're like, yeah? What can this do for my pain? How can this possibly address what I've been through or what I've walked through or what I've experienced? How can it account for all the difficulty that I know? And how in the world can I then, at Christmas time, deal with that contrast? Because like I said before, Christmas is a holiday where it is meant to be bright and beautiful and celebratory. We sing joy to the world. And yet it naturally, in its very being, ends up pointing to the fact that our world is actually very broken. There are many people who do not have what they need. Many people who continue to struggle, many people who their relationships that they are going to try to celebrate are so difficult, and they don't know what to do with that. There are those that are facing a health challenge, and they just don't know what to do about the fact that it's chronic and it doesn't go away. There's those that they reflect on the year back that they're kind of getting close to finishing up, and they're like, man, all the things that I wish that I could have seen come about didn't come about. And I'm bummed about that, or I'm really distressed or dismayed about that. It feels like my life just keeps getting delayed. Here I am, another year gone, and that thing still hasn't come about. There's also those people who are sitting in a place of financial stress where all of our consumerism and materialism and purchasing of gifts, it doesn't feel like joy, it feels like pressure, and it's tough. And there are those who, I think, sit back and look at themselves and say, wow, I wish I hadn't done some of the things that I did this past year, and I wish there was other things that I would have done, and I'm just not that keen on myself at this point in time of the year. How do you have a holly jolly Christmas when that's the reality that we find ourselves sitting in? And if we are honest people, I think every single one of us can actually put our hands on that kind of a challenge. We can feel the kind of the bitterness of this year and Christmas. So do we just need a little bit of Christmas spirit? A few more Hallmark movies, maybe a secret visit from Santa, right? Maybe Buddy the Elf could stop by, right? And that would help, right? Is that how we turn things around? What's interesting is that I look at the cultural celebration of Christmas, and I actually really enjoy it. I like what we do. We did not have Christmas trees in Bethlehem, right? It wasn't around, okay? But I'm glad that we do it. I'm glad we decorate our house with lights and all these other things, right? It's great. But guess what? The way that our culture is setting up Christmas is actually meant in some ways, I think, to kind of skirt or to cover over some of the real challenge and difficulty of our world. But that was not what the first Christmas was all about. The first Christmas came directly to address head on all of the problems of the world. It was meant intentionally through a birth. And just so you know, if you ever hear somebody say, oh yeah, that's a nativity scene. Why is it called a nativity? Nativity has a Latin root, and that Latin root is just the word nativitas, or another part of it is nativus, and they just mean birth. It's literally the Latin word for birth or to be born. So a nativity scene is just a birth scene. And so you have to understand, when we're playing with all of these different ideas, our Christmas story, if you believe it, is not pulling any punches. It's stepping into a dark and cold world that seeks to extinguish light. And John talks about that. But the light and the life is so great. And because it was the creator of all things, that's where the power comes in. If Jesus was just another birth, well then eventually he's going to get snuffed out. But if Jesus existed at the dawn of time, if Jesus was a part of the creation of all things, then guess what? It doesn't matter how much the dark will press in on you and I. It doesn't matter how hard or difficult we'll experience things within this life. Guess what? We have a Jesus. We have a birth that is a symbol of new life. And that new life is offered to each and every one of us. That's the hope of Christmas. And I want you to know that this week was a hard week for the Bleecker family. I may get emotional as I talk about this. If I do, I'm okay with it. I hope you're okay with it, okay? But we had a hard week as a Bleecker family. On Wednesday, we woke up and Bree just expressed the fact that she wasn't feeling very well. And we had some conversations with our doctor, and we knew that we needed to go to a place that we didn't want to go, but that we needed to go. We had to go to the ER. And so about 9:30 a.m., we got to the ER, and we had some tests, we had some blood work, we had some ultrasounds, and over the course of a very, very long day, we learned about the fact that Bree had an ectopic pregnancy, which means that, in just very simple terms, that the egg actually implants in the fallopian tube, and it doesn't plant where it needs to be. And so because of that, it's not a viable pregnancy. And because of where it actually does implant, it's dangerous to life. It's not a viable pregnancy. It needs to be addressed. Otherwise, it could threaten a person's life. And so we were in the ER for 12 hours, from 9:30 a.m., waiting and waiting. Eventually, we were moved to the actual, like an ER bed. But we waited, and we were in the company of a whole lot of people who I will say were really, really struggling. They were miserable. We were hoping that we weren't going to catch what they were bringing in, right? And we had to sit there in it. We couldn't go anywhere. Hour after hour, I'm sitting across from my wife who is in a ton of pain. And on top of that, I'm viewing everybody else's pain all around us. I'm hearing it. I'm overhearing it in the phone calls and the conversations about insurance and everything else. It was just there. And I'm so unbelievably grateful for the fact that we were at a hospital where eventually at 9:30 p.m. we were able to get Bree in for a surgery. And the surgery was a success. The surgery addressed everything it needed to, and there were no complications. We got back to our house at 1:30 a.m. And Bree's here this morning, and I'm so glad that she is. This is her first outing since the surgery, was to be able to come here to church this morning. I'm sharing all that with you because I need you to understand the fact that this week was one where we didn't get to just have a light, fun, celebratory kind of lead up to Christmas. We're feeling, and Bree uniquely is feeling the weight of loss. We were pregnant, and now we're not. We feel the weight of the fact that, her body has to keep recovering. And so we're sitting there, and we've got 3 very active boys, one of which, a little dude, he can't hug his mom. It's tough. It's been tough. And so I know that this problem is one that it's unique to us today, but I want you to know that our whole world is in the emergency room. Our whole world is in the waiting room, longing for some kind of relief for the things that are causing them pain and distress. And they're hoping that someone will open a door and call out their name and say that they can now go in and see the doctor and potentially get medicine or understanding about what's going on so that they can resolve the issues that are ultimately just causing them fatigue and exhaustion. That's the world that we live in. And I am not thankful in any way for the experience that we had. It was rough. I don't want to go back and do that. I'm okay with the fact that God reminded me this week of how challenging the world is by having to sit there hour after hour. Doesn't matter how much you distract yourself on the phone, you can still hear and experience the difficulty that is in a hospital. And I'm also thankful for all of the workers there who showed us care, for the people who did their job with professionalism and who, even though they couldn't help us at times, still tried to provide for us in kind of the in-between. The people who did have the ability to give medicine, and then for that specially trained group of people who took Bree into the OR and then proceeded to make a life-saving procedure that, yes, sad in its own self, but she's here today, and we get to move forward in life because of what the hospital was able to accomplish. It was gritty. It was not fun. There was a lot of fear that was encapsulated in the whole thing. And yet, I'm willing to stand up here in front of you today and make a call for hope, because I know that first responders and hospital workers and nurses, they're doing good work, and we need to celebrate that, even though it's tough. So I bring all that up because guess what? The church has a role within this world. Those people who have come to know the light and life of Jesus Christ, we have a role within this world that I think, though I wouldn't call us a hospital, I would say that we are similar to some of those workers. There's a world that is broken, that is struggling. They are disconnected from the creator of the world, the Logos. And we, those that believe, have the chance to maybe be able to introduce or deliver to their doorstep a relationship with God. That's exciting. What they do with it, whether or not they accept it or they don't sign for it, they wait for it to just be stolen off their porch, like so many Amazon, things are. But we as the church, we who have received the delivery, we now get to be the delivered. And we get to give the delivery. We have to be the ones who put it out there into the world. We're not the package, just so you know. I'd like to think myself as the total package sometimes, but that's not the truth. We just bring it to people's doorstep, okay? We're like John, the man sent from God who was just a witness, who was just giving and testifying so that people can believe. That's what this passage is putting out there. I've got my own doubts. I've got my own questions. I've got some anger. We're not, through this, nor are we through all the other circumstances within our life that are challenging. But I want you to know that I am going to rejoice this Christmas season. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to be hard for me to say, but we are in a holiday that is uniquely difficult because it is all about birth. And I want you to know that anybody who is getting ready for a baby or excited about this, we are praying and we are rooting and we are going to celebrate the birth of Jesus, and we're going to celebrate the life that God is moving within you. That is true. We uniquely, as a family, are not able to celebrate that. We have a loss in that place. But that's okay. And it's okay because we are figuring out how to walk this through. We're figuring out that when we woke up after going to bed at like 1:30 or 2 a.m., the people that we had contacted, we had let a number of people know, we woke up and by 7 a.m., there were breakfast burritos on our doorstep delivered by some of you here in the church, and they were delicious, right? And I needed those burritos, right? Because Lord knows I wasn't going to be able to do anything that morning, right? There were people who delivered donuts to our doorstep. There were people who delivered flowers to our doorstep. There were people who delivered lunch, including root beer and chips, which are like my favorite, right? There were people who showed up and took care of our kids for a period of time, walked them to the park so that we could have a little better rest. We had family members who came and talked with us and who were encouraging and shared our sadness so that it wasn't such a heavy burden. And I want you to know that that's what the church does. You deliver. The church puts something on people's doorstep, whether they deserve it or not. They know that there's a need, and so they get a hold of DoorDash or whatever other company, or they drive it over themselves, and when they put it there, guess what? It's in the same way that God came tangibly into this world to be able to remedy the difficulties and the darkness. These things are a symbol to people who are desperate. And don't ever underestimate what God can do with a delivery of something little. A little bit of kindness can go so far. A little bit of hope, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of truth, a little bit of care. You don't know what God can do with that little delivery. But this is what I know about our Bible. This is what I know about our God, is that through a very little delivery 2,000 years ago, God delivered all of humanity. That's what he can do. That's what Christmas is all about. And so it's okay that we live in a dark and broken world, and it's okay that sometimes we encounter a great deal of pain. But that rallies us as the church to come around each other and to actually be witnesses to the light. We're going to sing a song here in just a second that's called O Come, Emmanuel. I'm going to invite the team actually to come up. And in this song, it talks about the fact that Israel, this nation, which is the people of God, that they were really struggling, actually, that they were in places of darkness. And yet the song's chorus again and again is, rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel, which means God with us, has come to you, O Israel. That's what we're going to sing. Not because we're blind to the difficulty of the world, but because we are the people who hold on to the hope and the light and the power of what God has done at Christmas. And we believe that it's still, I'll say this, it showed up for us this past week. And I'll say, I had a whole bunch of deliveries this past week because some people here at the school gave me a wish list for students. And this week, I get to deliver them here to the school. And junior high kids ask for weird stuff, right?
They ask for strange cologne. They ask for, like the oddest, like I have a cat, like scratch pad. And I'm like, what in the world? But this is what these kids wanted for Christmas. So I'm not editing it. I'm just giving it to them. But we get to deliver that. And we get to put a little note on it that says, Love, Friends, Church. I don't know where God's going to take that. But we do these things as a way to witness to how good our God is and the fact that no darkness can extinguish His light, His love. And so we're going to keep moving forward with that. That's the hope of Christmas. My invitation to you as we sing this song is, one, to sing it and to genuinely rejoice. And then two, is to be thinking, who's someone in your life who could use a little delivery of something this coming week? It could be as small as a text. It could be Oli Boli donuts showing up at your front door, which our kids just tore through them, right? It could be flowers. It could be you stopping by. I don't know what it looks like. But we have a beautiful opportunity before next week to invite people to come and experience what Christmas is all about. And maybe some people will get to learn about who Jesus is and about this kind of hope that we have for the very first time. That's exciting to me. That's why you got those cards on your seats. And after this, we're going to have some fun with the cookie decorating and just rejoicing. So please stand to your feet, sing out this song with the band.